Good evening, everyone. It's Vegereness, and it's time for another deep analysis video. So I've done two of these. I've done a Tyler 1 video, I've done a Dr. Lupo video, and both have turned out very well. Actually, the Dr. Lupo one is pretty successful, at least from my channel's perspective. It's almost, I think it's hit 1,000 views and couple of new subscribers, and there's so many comments, so I really appreciate everyone liking and sharing and commentating on it. So I had one of my students yesterday. He asked me to do analysis video on brilliance, and I figured, well, why not? So let's do a deep analysis on how to get brilliance in your chess game. Now, it's kind of funny because I'm mentioning how to get brilliance, but I don't want any of you to actually chase for brilliance. If that makes sense? So let's first define what a brilliant is. In chess, a brilliant is considered either a best move or a move involving some sort of sacrifice, which then allows you to gain some sort of tactical advantage. So this could be winning a queen. This could be sacrificing a piece or your queen to get checkmate. Either way, when you're playing chess.com and you're playing a move and it's a sacrifice and it gives you some sort of advantage, it's usually going to be some sort of brilliant. And there's this whole obsession about brilliance. Like, everyone wants to get brilliance. There's tons of videos about them. I am guilty of having many of my shorts showcasing all my brilliant games, which I've done over the years. So there's still quite a few more videos to go, but everyone likes that double exclamation mark. Also, too, the double exclamation mark was originally in chess annotation back in my day when we actually had books and we would read up on international games. We would read the annotation of a really famous game between, like, say, two grandmasters or two IMs, and there would be exclamation mark, there'd be a question mark if there was a blunder, and sometimes you would get the double exclamation mark, which is, a brilliant move that was played. Not necessarily a sacrifice, but just like a really, really, really strong find of a move that changed the pace of the game and, made it more decisive of a winner and a loser. So I figured, well, one of the best ways to find brilliance is to do tactics, or basically do puzzles to identify tactics. So I decided that I think today would be a good day where I'm going to do a simple puzzle rush survival run. And this video will be tailored towards pretty much every level, from the beginner level all the way to novices, to intermediates, to advanced level thinking, and then everything up, like 2,500 up high tactics, stuff like that. So I can break down how I would solve all the puzzles from each level, and maybe you can apply this to your own tactics training, and maybe eventually to your own games. Now, the reason why I said it this way is because applying tactics to puzzles is not the same thing as applying it to your actual game. Because in a puzzle, you're recognizing a pattern that you have to find, whether it's A, B, C, D, or E. But in an actual game, you might not notice that right away. So you have to be in a constant state of searching for blunders happening to your opponent, or maybe blunders happening to you. So pattern recognition is one of the best ways to find these type of patterns, so you can recognize them time and time again, but sometimes you just have to actively search for them. So we're going to talk about everything today. So this is a very basic puzzle, beginners. The way I define the way I teach students how to do these type of puzzles is I basically categorize them to 5 different ways. We look for checkmates, we look for free queens, we look for free pieces, we look for pawn promotion, and we look for defensive tactics. And defensive tactics is pretty much saving your king or saving a really critical piece, which on chess.com there are a few puzzles that come up. Not in the beginner level, but much later. But mainly, there's free queen puzzles, there's free pieces, there's checkmate. And the reason why I always tell the student to try and look at the puzzle and see what type of puzzle it is because how you look for a free piece is very different than how you look for a checkmate. So if you know it's a checkmate puzzle, then you can just keep looking for it until you find it. And there are hints and clues you can find in a puzzle that can help you narrow it down and identify what type of puzzle it is. And then at least from there, you can start searching for a solution to that one puzzle. But we'll get to all those later. So right now, the first clue that comes to my mind is we have the enemy king and there's like a back row situation, which is a very classic back row checkmate. So for like the advanced or intermediate or novice, you'll find this is like clearly checkmate. The rook will come here to block and you're going to take it on d8. But for a beginner, one thing to know too is that if your opponent, and we're going to see many more examples of these puzzles later on the survival game, if your opponent is threatening checkmate, then the clue is that the move that you make has to be a check. Because if you don't check, then your opponent will then checkmate you. So those are little tiny like pieces of clues you can use to help you later on when it gets very confusing, guide you towards what you need to find. And then you be surprised how fast you can narrow this down. But for now, we're just going to do rook b8 and be very careful and take the piece. Now, if you notice, I didn't like instantly move quickly and then grab the piece and show off my speed in puzzles, which I'm actually quite fast at. What I care about mostly is making sure that in survival, I'm taking my time and playing the best move. And I really like survival on chess.com because it's kind of a little realistic, like a tournament. Not every single puzzle, but for the most part. Okay, so when I look at a puzzle, I'm trying to think what type of puzzle is this. Free piece, free queen, pawn promotion, defensive tactics, or checkmate. And if I didn't have any pattern recognition and I didn't know what this was immediately just by looking at it, then what I would do is I'll try and eliminate all the different ones. So is it pawn promotion? Unlikely, because there's a pawn here that could stop this. c5 pawn for traveling, and there's a rook that can stop. Is there a free queen? At the moment, we really can't attack the queen, so I don't see it. Is there a free piece? Well, there's really no way to attack this rook in a way to get the free piece, so I don't see it. And it's not defensive tactics because our king is still relatively safe, which means we're looking for a checkmate. So what I'll do is I'll look to see if this works. I'll check rook e1, and in my mind, I will image this to the best of my ability of what my opponent's going to do next, which they only have two options. They can move their king to f2, or they can take. So let's calculate both. If rook goes to e1 and white takes it, and then I take with the queen, it checks the king and covers f2, which means white can't escape. It's checkmate. And the second line is if we go rook e1 and they go king f2, we can then look to see all the different options we may be able to check with the queen and see if we can find checkmate. In this case, it was actually queen e3 that would checkmate the king because the king can't escape to g3 or f3 because the queen cuts it off. But we didn't go that route. White decided to take the rook, and we delivered checkmate. So over time, as you keep doing more puzzles, you're going to start seeing these patterns of back row checkmates. And what's going to happen is your power recognition is going to say, move the rook to d8. And that's when you start gaining more of that confidence because your brain is recognizing patterns. Again, I see a king, 3 pawns. I don't see anything really defending the back row. I'm moving my queen here. There's 2 pieces that are going to block it, but I'm going to find checkmate. So beginner level, you're going to start seeing that right away as you start doing more of these reps, more of these type of puzzles. Now, we're on puzzle 4, and we have our queen being attacked. So, just by looking at this, I'm already thinking to myself, this has to be a queen move because our queen is being attacked. And unless you're doing a move that checks the king with another piece, we're going to have to move the queen. So already, just by looking at the board and seeing our queen be attacked, we know it's a queen move. Another hint to tell me this is checkmate is I don't count how many pieces are on the board, like completely. I count how many like heavy or minor pieces. So we have 4 for black, and we only have 3 for white, which means it has to be a checkmate puzzle. Because I would say 95% of the time it's checkmate, 5% of the time it's winning a free queen. Because if we somehow won a free rook or a free bishop, our opponent still has the same amount of pieces as we do. So these type of puzzles are meant for you 97% of the time to have a tactically winning position. And it's just about us figuring out how to find it. So because it's checkmate, now what I can do is I can completely focus on this king and kind of just narrow my focus towards this part of the board and just keep trying to figure out how to checkmate it. Luckily, I could see queen g6, and if the king moves to h8, which is its only move, we can go queen g7 and checkmate. Just like how we did. Okay, so let's look at how many pieces we have real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 6. So it's most likely going to be a checkmate puzzle. Another clue that it's a checkmate puzzle is that our king is super exposed. This queen can take on e6. It's going to cause complete mayhem. A lot of checking and things are going to happen. Maybe bishop a5 or a4 to really affect us. So just because of those two factors, my king's not safe. And, well, let's start off with less pieces than my opponent. Checkmate. But if my king's not safe, then that means my next move has to be a check. And the only way I can see myself checking the king is with the queen. So that's how we narrow it down to this queen move. Again, this is assuming you don't see this pattern, which I guarantee you do this 100 times. You're going to start seeing this pattern. It doesn't matter if you're 6, 4, or 87 years old. You're going to start seeing this. Okay, so this is a nice one too. Again, let's look at how many pieces our opponent has. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Again, 97% chance. This is most likely going to be a checkmate. Let's look at all the different checks. We could take here, but then the rook will take us, so that doesn't work. We go here. That doesn't protect. And now let's find some queen moves. We do have queen h3, and guess what? The king can't escape. This pawn's not defended. Therefore, checkmate. Now, our king wasn't in danger, but again, we're still looking for. We know it's enough. We have enough information on the board to tell us it's checkmate, so we're just looking for checks. Okay, let's take a look here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, very likely it's going to be either a checkmate or a free queen. So we have now, by looking at the board, we have a bishop attacking our queen. So it's most likely a queen move. What you can do without like being 100% certain, but if you notice how the king is, it's exposed, correct? But we only have really one piece that's near the enemy king, which tells me that it's actually not a checkmate puzzle. But if it's not a checkmate puzzle, it can't be a free piece because they're up a piece. So either it's a pawn promotion, unlikely, or defensive tactic, which, you know, we're getting threatened right now, so we definitely have to check the king. Again, another hint, which means it has to be a free queen. And I see this type of skewer that could happen if I put my queen on c1, which luckily I'm able to do and take. Okay, so let's keep looking. Let's count how many pieces we have. 1, 2, 3. And how many do our opponent has? 1, 2, 3, 4. And our opponent has a million ways to checkmate us, but the easiest way is queen g2. But we do know this is tactics. This is survival, and again, most of these puzzles we're in a winning position. So we look at our queen, how do we check the king? And then immediately I'm seeing this pattern. I got a pawn on d6, creates an outpost on e7, and it perfectly works with the queen. All right, we're at 9, so we're still in the beginner level. And okay, what do we do now? So let's look at how many pieces they have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we have 1, 2, 3 for white. So our opponent has 6 pieces. So guess what? If we've looked at the board and we find that there's 6 pieces and we only have 3, taking this knight is not going to help us because we're still down 2 pieces. So again, very powerful. We look at the whole board, we gain information and help us find our move, which seems to be like chess when you think about it. Okay, so how do we check the king? So one of the things I always do is I look at any of my pieces and see if they're coordinated. You know, this knight's attacking all these areas. You know, it's nice to take a bishop, maybe threaten with the queen, but again, our opponent has 6 pieces, so we know it's not a free piece. So now we look at the queen, we look at the rook, and we try to figure out, is it pointing somewhere? Oh, it is pointing somewhere. It's pointing to d7. So another tip, and again, I see a lot of beginners, a lot of you beginners do this, is sometimes you'll just take with the rook. And what you want to do is, if you can take a pawn that's near your opponent's king, and it's safe to do so, take it most of the time with the strongest attacking piece, and that's usually the queen. Because what happens is, you can then create an opportunity where, hey, see this king? And see this pawn, or 2 pawns and a knight? This looks like a back row position, or a back row situation. And although we have 1 rook covering this square, we have 2 attackers, which means we give up a sacrifice and take with the rook to win. And believe it or not, that would be a brilliant. If you did that in a chess.com game, you would get a brilliant from that move. So in 10 moves, you just found or 10 puzzles, you just found your first brilliant. Way to go. Okay, so now we're at 10. So I'm still thinking we're in beginner level. I think when we hit like around 1,000 tactics, then I would say we're a novice for sure. So let's see how many pieces our opponent has. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay, so this might not even be a checkmate puzzle. However, I do notice that our queen is being attacked, so I'm 99% certain that we have to move our queen. So as I'm looking around the board, I notice we have a knight on e4 too, and it's covering many squares, but it's specifically covering this f2 square that we happen to be attacking with the queen. So since our queen's being attacked, we know, without even trying, we have to take. Now, in this puzzle, did it come out right? Okay, good. We know in this puzzle that this isn't checkmate. But what happens is when we check on f2, the king will go to h1, and then we can go knight g3, and that checkmates. The king can't escape anywhere. But most of the time, if you're doing beginner level puzzles, it's going to make you just do one of the 2 or 3 moves to end the game. It's not going to make you do all of it unless you're at a higher level. Okay, what can we do here? So let's look at how many pieces the opponent has. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 3. So the chances of it being checkmate already is pretty high. We notice that the knight is coordinating with the queen to target this pawn. So we're going to take the pawn with our strongest piece. And now we're going to look for checkmate opportunities. We move our queen here. If we look around the board, we see there's a defense. We look over here, the king can escape. So, oh wait, we have another coordinated approach to f7, and we always take it with the strongest piece. Okay, and now let's look at our opponent's position again. So opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, very likely it's going to be a checkmate. And one thing my eyes will always focus on is how are your pieces coordinated. This queen and rook, it's called it's a battery, and it's very strong when they're working together. Because this queen can go anywhere, pretty much, assuming it can't get taken, doesn't want to get taken by any minor pieces, and it'll be super effective. And as you can see here, queen f7 checks the king on e8, and the king cannot escape nor take the queen. Excellent. Okay, so now we're getting to a little bit more interesting puzzles. So we're not at the 1,000 puzzles rating yet, so maybe, but I would consider this a little bit more novice now. Now we don't have that standard, most of the time, checkmate one. We have to actually figure out what we're going to do here. So the first thing I do when I look at this king is it's not checkmate. It's actually impossible because the king can just escape so many different ways. And we don't have any queen or any rook to stop the king from going out through many different escape routes. So we've eliminated the checkmate, and there's no queen on the board, so we've eliminated the free queen. Is it a free piece? Well, they have 2 and we have 2, so the chances of it being a free piece is pretty high now. Especially if it's even more high when you don't have a free queen or checkmate to wonder. Pawn promotion's unlikely because our pawns are kind of equally stopped, except for maybe one on the queen side. And defensive tactics, our king's completely safe. So we're looking for a free piece. So when I look for a free piece puzzle, and I don't have any hints of pattern recognition to help me, I try and look. Okay, so the first thing I'll explain is free pieces are not free pawns. Now, in a real chess game, they would definitely be free pawns, and sometimes winning a pawn can win a game, especially if it's in the center. You can ride it to the end game and make that win. It's happened before many times. But in a chess.com tactic, it would be usually a bishop, a knight, or a rook. And the queen has its own category, which I always call it free queen. So if I'm looking for a free piece, I'm going to look at both pieces, and I'm going to look at first, are they protected? And if they are, how do we get the protection away from that piece, which allows us to then take it for free? So I look at this bishop, and this bishop's not being attacked by anything, or could it be attacked by anything, except for maybe the knight jumping here. So this looks like a very safe bishop that we can't really go after. This knight is being protected by the king. However, the king doesn't have that many squares. It only has a few escape. Every move the king can go to actually makes the knight unprotected. So that's a clue. So now that we know the king is the only thing defending this knight, and this knight's being directly attacking their knight, is there any way you can take the king and force it away from protecting its own knight? So I'm going to give you a few seconds to look for this. Aha. Well, yes, we do have 2 pawns here, but more importantly, this pawn can attack the king. So it's kind of like a pawn sacrifice. Maybe it's a brilliant. This would be definitely a brilliant because you're giving up a pawn. But more importantly, the pawn forces the king away from the c5 square, which was originally defending the knight. And now, since the knight's not defending more because the king's forced to take, or it can go backwards if it wants. Doesn't matter. Knight is not safe. Takes your free piece. Excellent. Okay, so we have the classic enemy takes queen g2. Oh no, we're going to lose our rook. Oh no, we're going to lose our knight. Big problem. So let's look at how many pieces we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so that means it's not a checkmate, right? We don't know that. This is why we have to look at the board and figure it out. Now, this is an actual very common pattern to find, and you can do this all the time in chess. And this is where you have the queen that's lined up with one of the pawns that's in front or near the enemy king. In this case, it will be g7. And if only you had another piece to come over and work with the queen to take on g7 and deliver checkmate. And it turns out we can play rook g1, attacking a queen. If this queen moves out of the way, even for 1 second, boom, checkmate. So, very cool pattern. Again, this opponent is threatening 2 pieces. It is impossible to defend, but checkmates are the most important. We're always going to try to the best ability find any checkmate opportunities. And if it's so, then we have to calculate and see if it's worth it. In this case, it's actually not a checkmate puzzle, because what happens is the queen's threatening the pawn, the rook's going to g1, and the queen will take this rook to prevent checkmate, which at the end of the day, we still got the queen, and that's what's going to help us win this game. All right, 15. We're almost at 1,000 puzzles. I would consider this an all novice now. Let's speed up the pace a little bit because we're going to get to the juicy stuff. So, already, my eyes... Okay, so there's two new clues of this puzzle that helps me already solve what it is. The first one is they have that, and where is ours? We don't have a queen. If your opponent has a queen, and we don't have a queen, and we're doing a puzzle, I think it's like a 98% chance. No, I'd probably a little lower. Maybe like 95% chance it's going to be some sort of checkmate puzzle. But it is also the rare time, and I've done this in many puzzles, where I get their queen back, and now I'm back in the game. Like with an extra pawn, or maybe even a piece. However, the second clue, which definitely tells us this is checkmate, is that, look at this king. Can the king go anywhere? And I actually ask myself this question every time I look at the enemy king, and if I see if it can't move anywhere. Sorry, water. So if I'm looking at this king on f1, it's surrounded by all its pieces except for g2. So the square on g2 is actually covered by our bishop, which means if we can just find a way to check this king safely, we're going to be able to deliver checkmate. And turns out we have a knight that can check here on h2 or e3, and if we do careful looking at the board, pawn can take our knight, which means we go to the safe way and we checkmate the king. Okay, so let's look at this puzzle. We have a queen, rook, and a rook against our rook, queen, and knight. And it looks like their queen is super trying to checkmate us. So, already we're in trouble. So now, we're going to look at... So this puzzle, already it's helpful, where if we're being completely attacked and we're about to lose in one move, that means we only have to look at moves that check the king. So, I'm going to ask you very quickly, how many possible ways are there to check the king right now? I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so here's the answer. We have queen, that's 1 check. We have queen, that's 2 checks. We have queen, 3 checks. We have queen, 4 checks. We have queen, 5 checks. And then we have knight, 6 checks. So, which ones can we eliminate? Well, we can eliminate this. We can eliminate this, because the king will just take us, and we can eliminate this check, because we're going to lose our queen. We can also eliminate this check. So just within 30 seconds, I was able to eliminate this check, this check, this check, and this check, which means I only have queen h1 or knight f5. So let's look at both. If I go queen h1, the king can go to g3 or g4. and we have to be careful. So if we go king g3, that's kind of best case scenario. We're attacking the king. King moves away. We take the queen, but that actually, and then that we survive the game. But here's a common mistake that many of you still do. I guarantee it. When you're calculating, you make the move of either what you want your opponent to do, or you make the move that's not the best move of what of black or white's going to do to respond to you. And what you have to learn to do, especially when you calculate, is you have to figure out what's your opponent's best move and then assume they're going to play it. Now, I know some of you are in the realm of I call it the shallow realm, where it's like less than 1,000, less than 1,200, 1,300. You know, that whole dark side realm that I remember when I was there. And it's all like Blunder City, Blunder Town, missed opportunities, stuff like that. That being said, you look at the entire board and you take your time, and it's gonna help you find these type of moves. So, very key to calculate and try our best to find what our opponent's trying to do. And whoever can do that better can usually wins the game. So, based on all the deduction here, we came up with queen h1 and knight f5. So, if we look at queen h1, the best move here is by far king g4. And then if we check, we cannot check because the queen will take us. So we basically run out of checks. Because we can't go back to queen d1 to check the king. Well, actually we can, because there's a knight here. But now the king can go to g3, which I believe, or they can go to f4, and maybe there's still checks. But this king looks like it's going to escape. There's just too many things going on the board. So now we look at our second move, knight f5, and we see where can the king go. The king's in check. Knight can't be taken. Can't go to h5 because the queen's covering. Can't go here because the queen's covering. Can the king go here? No, because the knight's covering. Can the king go here? No, because the pawn's covering. So, just based on doing this, and we eliminated all the different possible checks, we find checkmate, which is actually a very nice checkmate. Okay, we're at 17. So, let's see what else can we do. Our opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means it's a free piece, right? It could be. Or it could be a checkmate. So right now, black has a bit of a threat. They're attacking here. They're attacking this bishop that's not being defended at all. They're attacking this queen. The queen's attacking d1, which is definitely threatening checkmate. So what do we do here? How do we win this? Well, guess what? There's actually quite a bit of calculating. For a 1,000 puzzle, this actually is quite a bit of calculating. But the best way to do this is you actually have to sacrifice the queen temporarily, which, again, this would be another brilliant. If the black king goes to f8, that doesn't work because you just take their queen. So you take the pawn, the queen takes, bishop takes the pawn, and now the king has to either take or move off to h8 or f8, which, to be honest, the black king should just take the bishop. It's free. And then the rook takes this rook. And then if this bishop takes your bishop, you could just take the their light square bishop, and now you're a rook versus bishop endgame, which is usually winning all the time by rook. So that's how we calculate, which, to be honest, this is quite a lot of calculating moves for 1,000 puzzle, but hey, a little bit of advanced tactics is not a bad thing. A lot of moves, but very good. Okay, so now we're at 18. We're, when I think we get to around like 20, 22, 23, I think that's a little bit more intermediate. So we look at the position. We have equal pieces. However, we have an opponent that has a passed pawn. And it's not just a passed pawn. It's a passed pawn with a rook behind it, and the pawn's traveling. And it's going super fast. So if we just look at the board, and if we were trying to defend this, we would have to like go here, this pawn's here, go here, now this pawn's here, and then like defend that way. And to be honest, we're going to lose the game if we do that, because then this rook is free to move everywhere. We have a pinned rook here. We only have one rook that's dealing with everything. It's not going to be a good game. But luckily, this is a game where tactically we're winning. And we have one of those common positions where if we can get a rook to either a4 or a5, we're going to be able to checkmate. Well, to be fair, move the rook from b5 to a5, then we can checkmate, assuming both rooks are protected. So, how do we checkmate? Because this king is stuck, but I can't take the a5 pawn because the king will take our b4 rook. So how do we do this? Well, we imagine that if this rook was safe, and we just can take this a5 pawn freely with the rook on b5, and now the checkmate happens. King can't take the rook, can't escape anywhere. So the only way to defend this rook on b4 is playing pawn c5. And now, even though they're attacking our rook, it doesn't matter because we go for checkmate. Okay, what do we do here? Okay, so there's a lot going on. So if there's a lot happening on the board, take our time. We don't have a timer here. We're not trying to collect more points. We're simply trying to find the best move. So let's count how many pieces there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pawns look pretty much even. It's definitely going to be some sort of free piece. So now we have to figure out, is there any free piece we can take? Well, if we look at all the pieces, bishops is vulnerable, but I don't see any way to attack the bishop yet because it's surrounded by their pieces. This knight's vulnerable, but can't be really accessed by any of our pieces, so unlikely. But yeah, we're always looking for some sort of free piece. And again, this is a tactic, which means this is completely winning position for us. So we just have to figure it out. So what would be the best move? So funny enough, the only thing I'm thinking about is maybe we can take here on d7. Maybe we can take the pawn here, and if the king goes, we can take here and cause problems. So those are two ideas. So now I want to look at both ideas. So I'll look at the second one first, which is bishop f7. Because if the king takes, we take the knight, we're in a completely, this is very good for us. The only problem with this plan, because again, we're trying to look for our opponent's best move, is if we play a pawn bishop sacrifice, which in theory could be a brilliant if it was correct, they could kind of just ignore the bishop. Can't they just go to d8? And this knight's still safe, the bishop's still safe. The bishop can start attacking, but we can consolidate. Black can really consolidate real quick and still probably come out fine. So doesn't look like it's a sack. Now I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Which leads me to think maybe it's some sort of rook takes, and then king takes, and then knight takes, and then where do we go from here? Does the king go here, attack the knight, and then we're just taking more things, or does the king go back and we're putting more pressure somewhere? To be honest, I actually am not 100% sure what puzzle this is. I'm thinking more and more it's definitely a free piece, but how to win the free piece, I don't know yet. Still don't know yet. Yeah, I'm actually not 100% sure. But if I were to take a guess, it would be taking this rook. Again, the problem with taking this pawn is that the king can just kind of dodge it, right? Alright, so let's calculate. If pawn takes, king goes here. Oh. Maybe it is pawn takes f7. Okay. See, this is why one of my weaknesses that I have to learn is if you're still in doubt of a line, just try and calculate to the best of your ability and see if it might work or not. So originally I was thinking, okay, maybe I can take here, king goes here, bishop takes here, but then the king can just go to safety, and now they're up a rook exchange. If I take here, the king can also just dodge everything. But then I realized if we take the pawn, king goes, and the rook goes to d7, we're in a very scary position, and then we have knight checks. So this is still very good. But the best part is, and this is I just calculated right now, if I take on f7 and the king goes to d8, I can go knight e5. And although bishop can go on f6 and counterattack and take this knight later, I get this knight first. And if this bishop decides to take my knight, then I can play other discovery attacks and win way more pieces and come out ahead. So I think it's this move, because if the king takes, we take here, we're up a pawn, but we're in a very superior position. I just don't think it's this. I don't know. I think that's... Alright. Wish me luck. Double checker moves. I'll be honest, I was slightly a little nervous. I wasn't 100% sure, but we did it. We're officially at 20. That's pretty good. And let's keep trying to solve this. So our opponent has an extra bishop. A little annoying. And you would think, oh, maybe if we get this bishop, we can equalize the game. But no, we don't want to go for equal. We want to win. And therefore, we have to look to see what type of tactic is this. And the first thing I noticed is that this king is defending the rook. And the king's in a sort of potentially back row mate position. Which means if we can force this king away from the rook, then we win. So how do we do that? Well, if I look at my queen, I realize that I can go to b5, which will then check the king. And even if a pawn goes to c4, we just take it. The king's forced to go back or block with the rook, which the rook isn't defended by anything else, and therefore we can take it and win the game. Very good. Okay, so we're at 21, and it looks like our opponent's... Okay, so our opponent's trying to do the good stuff, which is destroy us, and we don't have any queens. So just by that alone, and the king's semi-isolated, then it's a checkmate. So how do we checkmate? Well, in a situation like this, when our queen is threatening our king, usually we want to do the checks. In this case, we can actually attack the king with the bishop. King goes here, and then rook to d1. King can't escape. Rook will go back, and we can just take the rook and win the game. So it looks like we found our winning game. Very nice. Okay, so let's count how many they have. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a lot. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're getting completely destroyed material-wise, but it looks like we're in a winning position in this one move. And this white queen is going to destroy our king any moment. So our move is most likely going to be a check. And luckily, there's only 3 checks I can find here. There's 1, 2, and 3. This doesn't work because I lose the queen to the knight or king. This doesn't work because I lose to the king, which means it has to be here. King gets pushed. And now, very carefully, this is a back row mate. We look for what's safe. You know, the final boss. Knight's covering E1, which is awesome. So I have to cover D1. And now, oh man, there's just more pieces. Well, guess what? Remember that puzzle we did earlier where if the king's surrounded by its own pieces, we just got to figure out how to check it safely? Well, this knight, we can go and check it safely. We can't move it to F3 because the pawn will take. But if we move it to E2, the bishop can't take, and therefore the king's going to be barbecued. Okay, so just looking at this puzzle, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have an equal amount of pieces. However, the one thing I noticed is that our queen's being attacked, and the king is very close to being attacked too. So this is super scary for black, and also scary for white because you make one mistake and black is completely in the game. So I do notice that the enemy king is on G8, but with my queen on F3, I'm creating an invisible line that the king cannot escape to. So if the king goes after this rook, the rook could leave, but then they'll make the king safer, or maybe it can find a way to exploit the king really quick. So king can't escape here, can only go here, can't even escape here, so checking the king will definitely force a response. And remember, we have to check the king, because if none of our moves checks, black will just take the queen on, and then it's going to be really bad. So we take here with the rook. They go king h7, and then we have this very nice pattern, queen h5, defending the rook, attacking the king, and winning. Okay, so we have a classic. Our opponent has 3 pieces. We have 3 pieces, but they have a pawn being promoted. That's kind of hard to stop. So, what type of puzzle is this? This is a free piece. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a good old checkmate. Maybe it's a defensive tactic. Maybe it's a pawn promotion, which is unlikely because none of our pawns can truly go out and promote. Maybe it's a checkmate. Who knows? What I do know is that this rook is pinned, can't do anything, and this king is surrounded by its own pieces again. So if we check the king, it'll be checkmate. Now, we can't do this with the rook because... Oh, sorry, we can't checkmate with just the rook. But this rook's also very pinned too. So, funny enough, this is actually going to be a brilliant move. And the brilliant move is rook takes pawn. Because the king has to take. The rook can't take as it's pinned. And now, luckily, we have queen h5, which checkmates. So if I go back real quick, queen goes here, king can't escape, king can't escape, king go back. There's nothing stopping it. This is completely won. Okay, so now we're at 25. We're officially intermediate level. So intermediate level, these puzzles are going to get tougher. They will get harder. And it's going to be a good time because whatever doesn't hurt you a lot makes you stronger. So you're playing chess. You're going to be encountering some harder puzzles. I guarantee keep working on it. It is okay to go from to 1400, dip down to 12, go up to 14, dip down to 13, go back to maybe go to 15. There's going to be that degree of variance, and it's completely fine. Just make sure you try and play in the settings that's going to maximize your success when you're training with puzzles. People like listening to music when doing puzzles. People like pure quiet. Some people I even know can do it when there's a loud noise everywhere, which I find very distracting, at least when it comes to really hard puzzles. So, find the space that works for you. In the meantime, my opponent is up a piece, but I see some back row mates. So we go here. The problem is they go knight to f8, and then what can we do? Well, let's go queen here first, because I can't see anything else. And now, how do we do this? What type of puzzle is this, really? Well, it turns out we have a nice bishop here, and only if we can find a way to attack the queen. And that's where this discover attack comes in. So we push the pawn, it attacks the queen, and it's attacking f7 at the same time. Super useful. And I think if the queen backs off, we don't take with the pawn, because then they just take back, right? So I think it's you push the pawn, queen backs off, and then maybe we play bishop d6, and now we have legit reasons of taking the knight and winning the game. So let's push the pawn. Oh, so now what do we do here? If we take and bishop takes, and let's say we take with the pawn, king takes, they got two pieces, we have one. So we obviously cannot take that queen. So I guess the only thing we can do is maybe we can take this pawn with the pawn, and then if the queen takes, we can pick up the bishop, and now we're up a piece with a lot of pawns. If you can't find anything else, and you give it yourself reasonable time, then continue on. And if we make a mistake, we learn from something, and if we get it right, then we're trusting our confidence right now. So we take, queen takes, which means the bishop is not defended anymore. Get the free piece. Very nice. Okay, so let's see what can happen here. So this is one of those classic moves where it's all about move order. When I see a bishop here, and I see a queen that can access a5 and the pawn's on d4, then I know it's a free piece, because I can go here, check the king, and they can't defend the bishop because there's no knight c3, because the pawn will just take the knight immediately. So therefore, I'm going to get that piece. But before I can go and play queen a5 to take this piece, I got to look at the whole board. Because in chess, you have to look at the whole board in order to find the best move. And it turns out this bishop is being attacked by the pawn. So if I went over here and then take this, they can just take me, and now it's an equal trade. So how do I make sure I get enough tempo to attack the king to win the bishop? Well, we do it by taking the knight. Because if we take the knight, and more importantly, we're attacking the queen, we are forcing a response that doesn't deal with this. And now everything looks relatively safe, now I can go after the bishop, forking with the king. They play c3, very reasonable, and take the bishop. Okay, what else can we do here? So let's see how many pieces they have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, sorry, we didn't count everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, just looking at this, it looks like it's a free piece. And if we look very carefully, we see a very, very juicy knight. The problem is that if we take the knight, we have to look what is white's possibly best move. And they might have bishop b5, discovered check, and they're attacking the knight. And if we try and block with the knight, they can still take our queen for free, because the knight can't take because it's being pinned by the bishop on b5. So, have to be very careful and to figure out how we're going to play this. Do we take the knight? Is there a way where we can take here, they bishop check here, and then still keep everything safe? Like, I guess we can't retreat it because they could just take the queen. So there's definitely something. We just haven't, or I haven't figured it out yet. Even at this rating, which is like almost 1500, sometimes you get a puzzle where you're just not too... Oh. I think I figured it out. So I think it's something like bishop g4. Because if they go f3, we just take the queen with knight with check, and then we can just like get out of it. And if, yeah, so f3 doesn't work. And if they go queen d2, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what type of puzzle this is. I don't think it's a c5 type puzzle. I don't think it's e5 because rook e1 looks really good. If we take here, they go here. Yeah, there's no defense to that. So I guess the real question is, what do we play? Well, we could play bishop g4, and maybe it'll provoke this weakness. Should we give it a shot? No, got it wrong. Okay, so that's a first legit wrong. So if we take here, oh, this was fine. But how do we save the queen? Oh, did I miscalculate something? I miscalculated. Okay, this is very good. So getting a mistake is really educational too. I was looking at this to protect the queen, and I didn't see it was going to work because it's pinned. But I forgot that I can move my knight on f6 to d7, and now my bishop is defending the queen. So that's where the free piece is. Overlooked it, didn't look at the whole board, missed it. Hey, it happens. We learn from it. So, got one wrong at 27. That's kind of low for me, but hey, it happens. Okay, so now we have four pieces to r4, and you know they're completely threatening some really crazy bad stuff to us. So we have to win this game now. Question is, how do we do that? Well, if you see a knight covering this square, that's basically saying this is like a pawn here, which means back row mates are possible. So the first thing I think is I take the rook here, sacrifice the queen, and then the rook has to take, or we take back, and then we can just checkmate. So this looks like an easy checkmate. All right, and we're now around 1500 puzzles, so now we're getting to advanced thinking, and these puzzles get much harder. So you'll see like a couple of pawns, couple of knights, a rook, and a lot of space. And this is where it gets much tougher to solve these puzzles. So we're white. Okay, good. So we're white, and we've made it to the classic pawn promotion puzzle. So our number one goal is to promote this pawn and maybe stop this if we have no choice. So just off the top of our head, they decided to play rook b2. Well, I think it's very hard not to take this rook because I don't know how we're not going to survive. So we take the rook. Okay, that seemed to be a very... See, okay, this is the one with chess... What? There's a 51% pass rate for this puzzle. And people don't apparently see this. Okay, I'll admit, these are some of the examples where it's not really accurate. Like, there's no way this is a 1600 puzzle just by taking a rook and escorting, and or you don't even have to escort. You can just send your knight to take this pawn, and that's it. So, it is what it is. Okay, so now we're approaching 30. And, boy, our opponent has a rook, a queen, and a bishop. And we only have a rook and our bishop. So we're really low on firepower. And if you look very closely, we have this really cool rook d3 move. But normally, taking a free queen would be great here, except the issue is we're so low on pieces that if we play rook to d3, queen takes, king takes, our opponent's still up a full rook. So we can't even try and win a queen. Which means the only thing possible is checkmate. Now, what's a good clue of what's the checkmating piece? Can't be the bishop, because the bishop's on a dark square, king's on a light square currently. That's not happening. The only check we have is the rook on d3, but we're not exchanging. A queen's going to be happy exchange because they're up a piece, which means we're looking at the pawns. And this is the only pawn that I can check the king, which happens to be blocked off by the bishop, and therefore good old-fashioned checkmate. Okay, so now we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the king looks very safe. There's a lot of pieces in front of it. It's not a checkmate puzzle. So now we're looking at possibly free piece. And the only piece that looks a little bit vulnerable is this bishop, because this bishop is being attacked by another bishop, but there's not really that much defense other than the queen. So I think the first instinct is to put the rook on g8, because if we go rook g8, the bishop's pinned, the bishop can't move anywhere, and because of the queen being attacked. So we'll go rook g8. They decide to take the bishop, so we'll take the queen and take the bishop back and secure the puzzle. Okay, so now we're going to, again, this is more of the advanced type thinking. Intermediate, advanced, expert, and then higher than that, master. So we're equal pieces, relatively equal pawns. King is slightly exposed. So what could we do here? Well, the first thing my eyes notice is I see this. And that means discovered attack, which means we can throw this rook anywhere and see if we can gain advantage. Well, we can't play rook here because this is too chaotic. King will escape. Rook here doesn't even do anything because it doesn't give us a free piece. But if we notice the king really carefully, it can only escape here, here, here. If we move the rook to f3, then the king can't escape here because of the queen. And it can't escape here because of the rook. But if the rook goes here, checks the king, they can push the pawn. But as long as we take back the king, they can't do anything. All right, let's risk it. Very good, 32. And again, sometimes you'll encounter one random puzzle that doesn't really do much, or it's not that strong. But most of the time, they get it right. And boy, these get just harder and harder to do. Okay, so we have 4 pieces. They have 4 pieces. So, and then the thing about these puzzles is that they don't become very, they become less obvious to know what type of puzzle it really is. It gets very tricky. So, and that's where, especially the harder puzzles, they get much harder to figure out what it is. All right, so what do we do here? So the first thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what type of puzzle this is. It's very unlikely it's a checkmate puzzle because I only have one piece attacking the king. Oh, so the first thing I do is I'm looking at all my queen moves, and the only queen move I have is here, but the king goes here to g7, and now I have nothing. So maybe it's more positional. We can't bring the knight in because the rook takes. If we go queen f or queen c6, bishop c7 or bishop b7 actually stops us. So you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking the best move is king f2. Because if we go king f2, we can play rook h1. And then this is like really, we got some like very scary ideas and plans. However, king f2, queen h4, king e2. And now this queen is worried because this rook's coming in with a minimum pin or a minimum check of the king. I think king f2 is the way to go. I'm just double checking. I'm just looking at, I'm not missing anything. Wow, it's not king f2. Okay, let's take a look. Why wasn't it king f2? So was it a free piece somewhere? Can't be this because of the queen. So maybe it was attacking the rook in some way. But then bishop covers here. And then what do we do? Okay, so the queen goes here. And what do we do now? Maybe it's king f2 now? Oh, wow. See? I actually missed this completely. The rook, so I did see the pin, but I didn't think of how to exploit the pin. It actually didn't cross my mind at all. I was actually kind of more fixated at this type of stuff. So I don't think king f2 is a bad move, but compared to what I just found right now, it's definitely worse. We have pawn d6. The rook is pinned to the queen, and the rook can't move anywhere to protect this queen. And now we can take with the queen, so now we're up a whole rook, and that's why it's winning. All right. So I think what I learned from this puzzle is that I was thinking king f2, but I didn't really think of my next few moves afterward to actually confirm I can win the game with the rook on h1. And because I didn't do that, that should have made me think that, you know what, this is probably not the answer. Let's keep looking. Okay, so now we're getting to more pawn endgames with rooks involved. We got a lot going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, black has a superior position, except right now, at this one particular moment, we're completely winning with white. So how do we win this? How do we win it? What do we do? Okay, so the first thing I did is I looked at the enemy king, and if I noticed, it can't go here, 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 which means how can we check it as fast as possible? Unfortunately, we can't move this rook, because if we go here, they just take the pawn and the king can get out. So I think it's rook d2, because now we check on d5 and there's no way. Very nice. All right, let's keep going. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember in the old puzzles where they had a lot more pieces than us, and then we were able to figure out if it's checkmate or not right away? Here, much harder, much more equal pieces. It's always going to be much tougher to figure out what type of puzzle this is. So right off the top of my head, I'm looking at free queen. Am I reading this correctly? Do I think of anything else? There's no checkmate possibilities. Yeah, they can easily escape here. If we go here, pawn takes, king here, they go here, and we're still fine. Okay, I don't know why 1921 puzzle is a freebie with a 57% pass rate. Okay. Stop at chess.com. Stop doing that. Okay, this is an interesting puzzle. So we are down a rook completely. So if we go here, and the king goes here, and we take, we lose because we're getting checkmated. If we go here, king goes here, we take with the queen. Queen takes back, rook takes, and king goes here, and it's basically this very like drawish type game. So maybe we go queen here, king here, and then rook takes. And then if the king goes anywhere here or here, or that's it really here, then maybe we can check the rook and do a discover attack on the queen. I think that's the only way possible. So we check here, take with the rook, and now we go rook d7, and then king takes, or king goes here, we just pick this up. Very good. Okay, so now we're in 2000. So now we're getting to that like advanced we're getting to like that expert level. Nothing super crazy yet, but you know, I'm already down 2 mistakes, so I can easily get one wrong. I was really hoping to take this to like a 50, but I'm not feeling so confident right now with getting 2 early bombs. But you never know. Maybe I'll if I get how many likes? If I get 50 likes on this video, then I will do another run. And I'll try and beat my old record, which is 61, I believe. 61 was really hard. Okay, so since the king is positioned this way, I'm assuming it's some sort of checkmate puzzle. Or maybe a free rook, but how do we do this? So oh, I think I figured it out. So if we move the queen here, they check us. And that saves this, and then we're probably going to be losing because they can push h5. So I think we have to play queen d4 because they can't go here, and we immediately have this to take, and they can't go queen here to defend it. And then that's another way we can win the game. So queen d4. Okay, so they go back, so we take this pawn, and now we can check here. And now we use the same common strategy. If the king's defending the queen, it's the only way. How do we get this queen to move away completely from the queen so that we can win the queen? And it turns out you have rook a1, which the king has to take, and then you take the queen. Okay, so we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll be honest, immediately the first thing I thought of was rook d1. Because we have a minor that's ahead of a major, which means this knight's going to be pretty much can't move, or else it's going to lose its queen. We have 2 attackers, and if they try and play c6 to defend the knight, we play e4, and we're attacking the knight, and that knight cannot leave because we're going to lose the enemy's going to lose the queen, so they're going to have to lose a knight. So going here, pushing a pawn. We can just take it for free because our queen's protected. Because if we take the queen first, the knight takes back, and then black's better. Take here. Very simple. And now we've hit 2066, so we're entering potentially the 2100 tactics. So we got 3 pieces for white, 4 for black. They just took our, I'm assuming, rook. But obviously this is some sort of winning position for white. It's most likely some sort of checkmate. So whenever you see a king that's exposed and you have an open rook lane, you always want to try and get your rook on the 7th file. There's an old saying like 7 is heaven. Well, it's the same thing in chess. You get a rook on the 7th, you get 2 rooks on the 7th, it's heaven basically, because it's going to be you're setting up all these sorts of checkmates. Not to mention, it's just super dominating. So the first thing I'm going to do is like I'm going to move rook to e7, and I'm going to double check that I didn't miss anything, that there's some hidden attack on my king that can stop, but I think this is unstoppable. And agreed by the computer because they just gave us the W. So that was a 2147 puzzle. A little simple, but it is what it is. And now we're getting to some crazy stuff. We got rook, queen, knight, knight. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, so is this the first time we're actually. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's actually. Ooh, that's a really nice move. There's actually. We actually have more pieces for once. So what do we do? Well, if we take the knight, they take with again, and then they're still forking us. So how do we get out of this? I don't know if it's worth sacking a rook for this. If I'm going to lose the queen. Take, king, take. No, it's pretty devastating. Oh, I see. So we can't take this knight because if we move the king here and they take with the queen, we can take this. King goes here, bishop checks, and king will go back here. And then do we have some sort of rook check? Some craziness? Alright, let's go king e7. I think that's the only choice. Oh man, if we get this wrong, it's going to stink. But you know what? It's okay. We'll do another one. So king e7. There's no other check on the king that they can do on the king. Oh man, there's nothing. There's no greater hearing or feeling when you hear the do, and then a piece gets captured and you know that you'd made the right move. Otherwise, you hear the and then it's like game over. Okay, we take the rook for sure. Oh! We don't do this, but we can do this. Because when I was calculating this, and I was thinking like the king going here or here, and we're doing all like the checks, right? I'm like looking at them all. I calculated the king's going to go to f3, and then I'm like, okay, this king's going to be safe. So how do I trap this? But I think we just cover the square, and that must be it. Whew, apologies, everyone. It's getting late. I just lost concentration for a second. So what am I supposed to do here? Oh yeah, bishop d1. If the king goes here, we go bishop here. And if the king goes here, then we just go bishop here. And then they're losing the queen no matter what. So I think it has to be bishop d1. Okay, we take. And then we take the knight. And we're up a piece. Woo! A little tricky, You know, that's a nice little 2185 puzzle. Okay, what are we doing here? Our opponent is... Oh, this one's very cute. So this is... Okay, you're looking at your king. You have all this danger. We're not even going to break down all the pieces. So we see the king here. It has to be checkmated. We have to look at all the different combinations. You know, can't take here. Maybe it's here. Sacrifice, take here. King goes back. Probably unlikely. But we do actually have rook c7. If the king goes here, then we can take. And then queen takes, it's game over. If we go c7, king can't escape it. I think it's going to be too much of a problem. So the last thing is we take with the pawn, with the rook, they take back, and then we checkmate. because the king can't escape here because of the bishop and can't escape here for obvious reasons. So I think the key is the check. Okay, so we decided to go this way. So now we don't rush. We're going to double check. We can take here. Oh, no, that wins, right? Yeah, sorry. We go here. This goes here. We check anyway. The king can escape or attack our queen. We take here. The king goes here. Then we go queen. That's mate. All right, a nice 40 bomb. And we're at 22-29 tactics. So it keeps getting harder. Okay, so I've already found it's definitely a free rook. Rook to e1, king goes here, and then we see this diagonal. So my eyes went, okay, how do I get this rook through this diagonal? And then I found queen b8 right away. And then we could just take the rook. So take queen here and take the rook. All right, one of my favorites to do. I'm not even joking. It is pawn endgame puzzles. And I actually have a lot of students, all my competitive students, training on endgame puzzles because it really helps with pure calculation. And it's simplistic enough when there's only like pawns involved or maybe a rook involved that it's only a combination of one or the other. So in this case, the goal is very simple. We got to promote. So the question is, do I push my king first or do I push my pawn first? If I push the pawn, the rook has to go here. And then maybe the king goes here. And then if their king goes here, we can't go here because then they go here and then this is stunned forever. So maybe when I push and they go retreat, I go here, goes here, and then I just bring the pawns. And this guy is just going to keep hovering. And yeah, I think that's the way to do it. So all right, let's see what happens. Let me double check. Here, here, here. I have to do it. I love that sound. Okay, I think we have to go to b3 because we're trying to cut off the rook or the king from helping. And now I think we can just push the pawn because there's no way this rook can check the king because this king's blocking. And if we go to king a2, the king will just go to c2 and stop this because they can. Okay, I like it. All right, so this is actually, whoa. Okay, so look what we have here. We have two black queens and a rook and a bishop, and we're black to move. So this, we have a lot of pieces. Our opponent only has some strategic pawns, a bishop, and a queen. So this is our very first defensive puzzle tactic, where all we're trying to do is not get checkmated. That's it. And how do we do it? Well, so if we have three different options, and each of them really matter. So the first one is we'll get rid of the obvious. If we go here, then they check. Go here, and they have no more checks. So maybe that's it. Interesting. So originally I thought it was rook h8 because they can't go here because of check. They can't go here because of check. Oh, sorry. But now that I think about it, if I go here and then move the king and then I go this way, I could see that that's not exactly great too. So I go here, I'm getting destroyed. Again, I'm taking my time because I really want to try and see if I can get it a little bit higher for everybody. King here. Can't check. Can't check. Okay, so if I go here, check, here. Oh no, I'm silly because then they go Queen G2, G7, and then I'm gonna get completely destroyed. Okay, so it has to be King H8. King G6 seems a little bit too close. They got some pawn ideas, and oh god, I don't want to go through that. So King H8, and then yeah, they have to exchange the rook because we're gonna checkmate them in like 2 moves. All right, nice. And we're check again. So notice how there's just all these formats are changing a little bit. Sometimes there's a lot of pieces that are attacking our king. There's queen checks involved, so it just makes things more complicated. As you can see, our knight's being attacked. Queen's trying to organize this. Your queen's attacking my king. So once again, I have to find a very good square to get out. And if I notice real quick, if I move my king, this rook is attacking the knight, and my queen's attacking the knight. And maybe that's a super counterplay we can find. So the question is, how do we move? Where do we move our king to avoid all these checks? Because I don't want this stuff happening, because then this activates. So I can, my only realistic spot is here, 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 or here. If we go here, it doesn't do anything. If we go here, we get checked, right? Wait, we can go to D3 as well. If we get checked, we go here. To get checked, we go here. If we go king to B2, we're just going to get checked nonstop. So I think it has to be king D3. Now pawn E4, king retreats, queen checks, king goes here. And we're still putting a super lot of pressure. I'm not sure. All right, let's risk it. Yeah, I just don't feel like it's this or this, because then this pawn can go down and then I can get checkmated. So I think it's D3, and then we go to. We could go here, but I think it's here, and then we move our king back down here, and we survive. So another defensive tactic. Oh, this one's really cool. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. But I saw this right away. I noticed that if the knight takes on h6, you can't take with the queen because the rook takes. So if the knight takes on h6, pawn takes, you can play rook g6, and the pawn can't take because the bishop's defending it, and now you're attacking the queen and king. Very nice. Speed, confidence, all that good stuff. Okay, so we have the classic, potentially rook f1. King goes here or here. I'm assuming if we go rook f1, king goes to g1, queen here. You're still going to go king h7, and then it's not the best position for me. Oh, wait. Am I silly? Can I just play rook, or play queen f5, attacking the rook? And there's no way to defend, right? Oh, there is a way to defend. You can go rook, queen f7. And then maybe we check here. And then the queen goes. And then we do this. And then the king goes. And then we're just infiltrating and taking everything we want. Okay, so we have one idea. We have the queen f5 idea. Is there a better move? Wait, can't I just play queen? Oh, I can't play queen h5 because of this. So my move has to be a check. So if I go rook f1, king here. Ah, so if I go rook f1, king here, queen check, king here. Queen check here, king back here. I don't see anything. Rook here, king here. If I check here, queen block, rook here, king here. I am not sure. Which is fine. I mean, it's a 2,500 tactic. Time is going to be required to solve these. So that's where it happens when you see these level of tactics, where there are a couple lines that are so close, but one of them is just better than the other. Okay, we know that it has to be a check, because otherwise this is coming or this is coming and I lose immediately. So we have queen here, and queen here, and then rook here. So if it's queen c8, they're not going to f7 because we're going to rook check. So we're going to block with the queen. Hold on, I'm getting somewhere, right? I go here, they defend here. If I go here, they defend here. And then I take here, they go here, and then I go here, and then they take and take. Okay, is there anything better than that? No, I can't see it. So wait, you go here, to go here, here, here. And then there, okay. I got this right. Okay. Okay, so obviously the rook is being threatened by the pawn, so we take the queen first, and then we take the rook. So yeah, we definitely had a free queen at minimum. Okay, 2,500 puzzles, not bad. So this is one of my favorite checkmates. So if you go to Lead Chess, there is some practice puzzles that show all the basic chess patterns in the game. And you can actually find this under one of them, where you actually, if you have a bishop covering on g1 and you have a rook here, then it's actually a queen. Oh no, I messed up. It's not a queen checkmate, because if the king goes here, rook checks, king goes to g3. Oh no, I rushed. So that's another thing you don't want to do in puzzles, you rush. Oh no, I thought it was, but I forgot the king can go here. That was bad. Okay, so how would I solve this originally? I would probably play rook here, and then bishop takes. No, bishop takes, pawn takes. Yeah, bishop takes. Oh, that was a mouse slip. Bishop takes. Yeah. All right, my bad. That was bad. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you got some tips out of this. Again, if you're a beginner, I think the beginning stuff is very useful, because that's a really good guide to help you try and solve. And over time, as you get better, you find out you always have to look at the board, find out what different type of puzzle it is. But as you notice how you get to these type of puzzles, it gets harder. Everything, all the different lines are getting close. It's like it's so one-off. Also, if you can tell, I'm probably sure there's like 3 times I just literally just fell asleep for like half a microsecond. So I'm pretty exhausted, but 46 is still not a bad run for me. But yeah, I hope everyone learned how to find brilliance. And, I was trying to do another sacrifice brilliant, but that didn't work out. If you enjoyed this video, you found it very informative, you want me to do more deep analysis of other sort of things, by all means, please comment, share, like, and subscribe. It really does help me out. I do have one video planned for how to minimize rushing. I think that's a really big one. I actually encounter this a lot when I teach both adult and kid students, so I'm going to do a deep dive on this. I don't know when. It might be, I'll probably drop it on Wednesday. I just finished a thumbnail now, so I just got to sit down and really kind of, not script it, but come up with some really good examples and ideas, and how to apply these ideas and techniques to you to minimize rushing, which to me is the number one issue. Hey, I just rushed this right now. I did a perfect example of why rushing is not so good. So thank you everyone for watching. If you want me to do another video of like a speed run of trying to get to like 60 or 70, I've never hit 70 before. Give me some likes. If you wanted to see another video like this, exactly, of me doing survival, you found it very helpful and entertaining, I want 50 likes. Very small. Again, I'm a small YouTuber, slowly just building this up. There's absolutely no rush or time for me. I'm going to create content either way. So 50 likes and I'll do another survival run. That'd be awesome. But in the meantime, thank you all for subscribing and supporting. I'm now at 891 subscribers, so oh my god, we're going to hit 1,000 subscribers soon. That's going to be very cool. And yeah, in the meantime, I still got more videos to make, and I like these deep analysis videos. I like talking and focusing and really trying to break it down and explain it in a way that will make as many of you as possible get a little bit of information. So again, the goal of the video is not to make sure you know everything of what I said. Some of you are very advanced players. Some of you are probably even stronger than me for sure. And if you can learn one thing about what I talked about in doing tactics and find puzzles and find sacrifices, then I've done my job. So I'm happy about that. All right. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to go to bed, but have a good night.